You look nice. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. I noticed recently there's a certain spark that I think has been missing between audience and creator. Something I feel like I see happen everywhere that I haven't dared do. Yes, I haven't dared to try a listicle before. And if you'll allow me, I would like to give it a shot. I'd like to give it a shot about this very formulaic thing that everyone seems to do.
I've never done a listicle on this channel before, so I figured I'd give myself a little break, and because it's the season for it, talk about a series of games that all pulled such a sincere and genuine feeling of love out of me. So thank you for joining me during this series, and let's hop to it. Here's the 6 games to make you believe in love again.
Possibly because it's the quintessential Valentine's Day storyline. Dear viewer, I'll be honest and say I've spent most of my Valentine's Day alone. But that does not mean I spent it without love, because for me and our amnesia-stricken detective, we had a friend. A friend much like Kim Kitsuragi.
From the second you meet Kim Kitsuragi, you can pass a check that tells you, if the windows came crashing down and the whole world descended upon you, this man would hurl himself in death's way to save you. You are sure of this. But why? The simple answer being because he is a good person and friend. Over the course of the story, it becomes painfully clear that you, the player, have had a rough life which led to miserable weeks and explosive days. You can obviously color in these lines a little bit about how you feel about them, but Kim and your relationship to him stays one of steady support. He does not hide your mistakes from you, he does not approve of everything you do, in fact, he will try to talk you away from poor behavior, and he's not without his own judgment, and yet, he's there with you through all of the mistakes. Like a friend. He does not leave your side and will advocate for you to others, especially if he sees that you're trying, in earnest, to be a better person. While of course you can direct the protagonist of Disco Elysium to truly awful actions, that Kim will directly try to stop and prevent, I didn't. I wanted to believe that I could help myself grow and pass my mistakes because I had someone like Kim through the story. His loyalty and purpose for doing so being one that even he questions. But in this honest portrayal, we truly discover the unique love of a companion who turns into a dear friend.
2 officers of the law against the world, nodding in unison. It is your source of power. The bond of camaraderie between you is palpable.
The main setting of Revachol is not a forgiving city, one reeling from systemic squalor and bigotry, one that affects how individuals will treat you, many will trick you, many will think nothing of you, and so to contrast all of them with a partner who not only believes in you, but also understands and listens to you in the aftermath of your broken feelings, it may not be the bombastic, loud, explosive power of friendship from anime, nor the over-romantic catching someone you love, but it is an anchor of love and support in a very rough world, which makes the sincere love of a friend all the more appreciated and all the more worth the ride.
The lieutenant doesn't say anything, but gives you a quick smile before turning away. He's incapable of blushing, but if he weren't, he'd blush.
Although to reference another type of love, we have Nier Replicant to show us that there's something uniquely human about loving each other in the face of ongoing destruction. While the story flirts with notions of romantic love, that is definitely not the focus of this long, intentionally repetitive story. No, this one is definitely about familial love, both found and through blood, and the choices we make to ensure their safety and their needs even before the cost of others.
You see, Nier Replicant is not filled with relationships that I would say are healthy or replicable, but stories don't need to be perfect or prescriptive to understand the intention, and this seemed exactly to be Yoko Taro's intent with Brother Nier, Kaine, Emil, and Yona. Much like our previous mention, the world of Nier is an imperfect place filled with imperfect people, and the game is hell-bent on ensuring that no one, especially our main heroes, are exempt from that imperfection. So our main characters are mean, they're even downright cruel at times, but in those moments of harshness, we're reminded of the simple truth that when reminded of our own fragility and vulnerability, we still choose to love each other. We still hold on to the family we either found or lucked into. We cling onto them so tight because our world cannot. and thus the story uses this tragic framing to emphasize how even actions some may deem selfish or antagonistic, they have kind motivations because everyone in the story has found a family that they love. That duality plays with the very personal and larger implication of love being this motivation within people, one that knows how to use a setting for maximum amount of drama and metaphor.
We helped you in some mad quest for vengeance, and now you think to bid us adieu? How can a fighter so skilled be cursed with such a thick head? A true warrior would fight. They would give all in the service of their friends.
Friends? That's right. He's right. Kaine, we're friends now.
See here, that was hardly the point.
Okay, then what is the point? Kaine.
In a game made famous for a repetitive cycle of gameplay, Nier reminds us that even if the world did end tomorrow, even if everything we knew would come to an end, then the true tragedy lies in never getting to be close to the people you love. And that despite the nihilism inherent to that conceit, loving each other and loving others is always going to be important, so that if everything did end, that didn't mean your love and the people who loved wasn't. This story will break your heart, but at least offer you some hugs along the way.
Of course they're weak, and they whine when I leave.
Weiss!
It's almost too much trouble, but they are my friends. I shall fight by their side, now and forever.
Weiss, thanks.
But I also understand we came here partially because we're interested in seeing romantic love explicitly. Well, don't worry, I've kind of got that covered.
What in God's name?
Moving on though, we're not going to scratch a deep love this time. No, instead we're going to scratch the thrills of being so down bad for your crush that you are willing to put up with an entire zombie invasion. Yes, we are referencing Leon's route from the Resident Evil 2 remake, where he meets mysterious agent Ada Wong in their mutual mission to take down and uncover the mystery of the Umbrella Corporation.
So this one might be a little tongue-in-cheek, especially for our long-term Resident Evil fans, but I don't mean that for it to be interpreted as insincere or uninteresting. Resident Evil, as a series, knows exactly how to craft a story that is so absurdly laughable, yet so weirdly wholesome that you're gripped without realizing it. And that's kind of exactly perfect for the dynamic we have going on with Ada and Leon here in their long-running series romance. Upon first being saved by Ada and immediately struck by her sheer, presence, Leon then commits himself to trying to low-key help and impress her, which results in him having to be saved by her again several times. Ah, there you go, Leon, trying to be all dramatic. But Leon is not gross about this, he is not obnoxious about his affection, and instead he is generally taken with her for her confidence. In a horror story about the worst first day of your new job, it's easy to see why Leon is so attracted to someone who appears to have all the answers. But I think the simplicity of their initial meeting and following chemistry is probably the most akin to being googly-eyed in front of your crush.
You protected me. Now it's my turn.
Didn't realize we were keeping score.
Grab my shoulder.
Don't push it, rookie.
Okay, just trying to help.
A fact of which makes him a little too ignorant of some key clues that are being dropped along the way, because, like any crush, Ada ends up not being quite what Leon originally imagined. She's got her own objectives and her own beliefs that don't quite naturally fit to Leon's, and they end up parting ways shortly after. Which, once again, like crushes that are quickly formed, they must also grow or stop upon realizing the short-sighted nature of that affection. For as loud as being smitten can feel, the initial shock of realizing that you were wrong about them can still feel jarring. And yet at the end of the game, Leon still looks back and thinks fondly of the mysterious woman Ada Wong, because deep below all of that was a sincere acknowledgement of genuine connection and affection. So we have a full arc, a genuine, a possibly silly little arc, but a cute one, about meeting someone, liking someone, clashing with them, but still coming out the other end liking them a whole lot. Which, if that doesn't summarize the ups and downs of crushing on someone, I don't know what does.
I don't have the authority.
Look at me. I'm a liability now. If I'm gonna finish this case, you're the last hope I've got.
I'm not just gonna leave you here. What if you're attacked? What if you need help?
same way though, I really want to shout out a shorter game and an indie developer for creating, in about 30 minutes, one of the most dynamic and joyous parts of a new relationship. And because the game is so short, I'm really going to try to avoid story spoilers here.
But Florence's story follows Florence, a young person living a dull life until she falls madly in love with a young man named Krish. Both are artists, both are people daring to dream more, and both are absolutely smitten with one another. Florence is on here because it knows how to tell a story through solely gameplay mechanics. There's no narrative text, there's very little dialogue options, there's very little words. Just the visuals and mechanical feel trying to act around your own emotions. So in that way, Florence is such an emotionally raw experience that it gets down to the core of love and the various ways it can liberate and hurt you. Weirdly zooming outside of such a traditional form of storytelling elevated the concept beyond what I thought could only be achieved in about 30 minutes. You know how for a movie or story you rewatch or reread your favorite moments? Florence made me pause several times during my time with it and really soak in the events of the story. Several times I knew how to progress to get the next story event to happen, but I was so swept up in the emotional joys or pains that I didn't want to leave that moment. I remained for longer to feel the full depth of what the single moment was. And the story would happily loop or let me continuously engage with that feeling. It allowed me to be in whatever state I needed to be. Also, Florence never loses sight of, well, Florence, the character, because for as much as we should celebrate love and all the thrill that comes with it, we must also never forget the failings and woes that love can bring, and maybe that a romantic relationship, no matter how fulfilling, isn't the only thing to aspire to. In that way, I felt so deeply moved by this game. I honestly can't think of any game that earns the full spectrum of love through mechanics in such a short time, in such a short window that I feel like I could recommend this game to anyone, whether they routinely play games or not. Near anyone could enjoy the short but fulfilling story that Florence has to tell, both in the emotional journey or the simple joys of the little puzzles. I honestly can't recommend it enough.
While we're on the topic of a little heartbreak, I thought I'd talk about a game very near dear to my heart, one I've talked about before on this channel, and really, these last two games are the games that made me want to create this whole list at all, because I think there's a refreshing novelty in a game that desires to make the love interest lived-in relationships.
Both Mega the Furies and Thanatos the God of Death are relationships that Zagreus, our leading character, has messed up a little to say the least. And so one is explicitly an ex and the other is a frustrated long-term friend and crush. I've written a whole video about how Hades uses the roguelike story to write its intimacy, which you should definitely check out, but for the purposes of this video, we get here a frustrated type of love. The type of love that comes from simply a more mature place. Since the text tells us that they broke up, they need to do genuine reflection and communication to get back together again. Conversations that also take several encounters, several bottles of ambrosia/nectar to end. There aren't many games or stories that dare to wander into the territory of making characters exes because it could represent the end of a relationship rather than the beginning, but I think in this case we really get to see the exact opposite.
You act a lot more confidently now, though I think deep down you're still that inexperienced little godlet that you used to be.
And I think deep down you're not the heartless harbinger of retribution that you want for everyone to think you are.
We get to see a type of informed love that comes from truly knowing someone and represents that love as a trajectory does not plummet when the relationship ends and feelings can be rekindled and spark up again. And in Thanatos' case, even if he's not explicitly an ex, he is someone that knows who Zagreus used to be. He knows about Zagreus' worst tendencies and therefore must also unpack their old relationship with their new one, which allows Supergiant to write their arguments and drama as such. And so, both Meg and Than's relationships can do just more with smaller amounts of text, because they truly know each other. They already have opinions and beliefs about one another that fluctuate between being accurate and inaccurate, which ultimately forms a type of love that is equal parts comfortable and familiar, but difficult and harsh. For all these ways these three care about each other, they can also just as easily hurt each other. All of which can only really be accomplished with this conceit. I love the idea that no matter how official these three might end as, they continue to love each other despite themselves. Or maybe I just love it because it leads to the best type of drama.
I better not hear a soul say I'm going soft on you. And second, keep up this slightly more mature thing you've had going for you recently.
Wasn't planning on sliding back into the insensitive nonsense of youth, so I don't think the second thing will be a problem.
And this last one is a big one. This is a game that took up about 70 to 80 hours of my time, because when I finished playing it, I truly sat down and thought, wow, I believe love exists. Because I played the most recent entry in the Tales series, Tales of Arise, a story that knows exactly how to use the JRPG long-form narrative to tell its very long love story.
Every narrative tool I can think of in this game is used to deepen Shion and Alphen's story. From the large plot cutscenes to the collectible side quests to the battle barks to even item descriptions. There's no hiding the love these two feel for each other, and it kinda needs to because they start the game as strangers. Expecting the leading heroes to fall in love is cliche at this point, and it's kinda here is too, but there's something so earnest in the development of their love for each other that it earns every single moment of it. Especially because the initial dynamic that binds these two is possibly the most on-the-nose metaphor you will ever hear. Shion is a cold woman from the oppressive regime who can't touch people without hurting them, while Alphen is a warm-hearted man from the oppressed group who can't feel pain. Yet, with throwing that level of subtlety out the door from the beginning, Tales of Arise really shows off the full dimensions of what one can do with the understandable metaphor and just the large amounts of genre fiction.
Back at the palace, Law said you took that hit because you were worried about me. What was it you were worried about?
That's kinda hard to explain.
Just tell me.
Because I think genre fiction uses these narrative ideas to make the insecurities of the characters' text, to make it so the feelings that they all have about themselves and towards each other tangible and material. So when that plot stuff happens, we never lose sight of how it emotionally impacts each of the characters. It's why watching Alphen and Shion just holding hands for the first time feels so impactful, because she's never felt the warmth of another person because she's afraid she'll hurt them, and she's finally found someone who could reach out to her. It's so goddamn cute. And the other tools like their barks that start as tumultuous and end as loving, the little tiny skits we get along the way, all of that is the love by million words that rounds out this larger metaphor. I can't say too much without wandering into spoilers, but I am being holistically sincere when I say this game is truly a well-told love story from start to finish. A story about two people who meet and they're slowly falling head over heels for each other. It uses everything in one of my favorite game genres to earn the story, so when the credits roll, you can't help but put down your controller and start crying.
Thank you, Shion, for everything. Now let's go check out those gates of fire.
Really? I swear. You're bad for the heart.
But that's all I got for this video. If you watch this with someone you love, or you're thinking of someone you love, maybe let them know. Because if these 6 games are proof of anything, it shows just how important this motion can be. But thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you next time.